At 2341, the mobile radar painted a compact return detaching from the main line west of Haskell County and traveling northeast at 41 knots. Surface winds and parent storm motion were both southeast. It was the only thing on my screen moving the wrong way. When it reached our position, nothing hit the truck. No hail, no rain. Caleb looked up through the windshield and said, very calmly, "Why is there another truck above us?" NOAA Severe Weather Incident Report. Supplemental narrative submitted by Daniel Mercer, Contract Radar Operator, Planes Mesonet Support Unit 3. This account covers the night of May 18th into May 19th, between 2010 and approximately 0112, route beginning near Woodward, Oklahoma, and terminating east of Haskell County, Kansas. I am adding personal annotations because the standard form does not have a box for some of what occurred, and because Caleb Reese is dead, and I do not want his last 6 hours boiled down to equipment failure. Our assignment was ordinary: intercept a supercell line crossing the county border, park south of the inflow notch, run the mobile X-band, collect velocity data for the university team in Norman. We had done the same thing 9 nights already that month. The truck was a white F-350 with the dish folded behind the cab and a generator in the bed. Caleb drove. I worked the radar laptop and cross-checked with GR Level 3 on a second screen mounted to the dash. At 2256, west of Sublet, I marked an isolated return on the north edge of the hook. Tight, dense, about the size of a grain silo, it was moving into the wind. I first assumed side lobe contamination or a bad velocity DWAS. X-band throws trash in heavy rain. We all know that. I recalibrated, checked attenuation, and compared the shape to NEXRAD data out of Dodge City. The parent storm was drifting southeast at roughly 18 knots. Surface inflow at our position was south-southeast, steady enough to make the truck rock on the shocks when the gusts hit broadside. The compact return came tracking northeast, directly against both. I logged positions every 30 seconds. 2303, 2 miles west, 2305, 1.4, 2306, 1.1, no broadening, no smear, reflectivity values absurd for the size, not hail, not a vehicle convoy. There was no road where it was crossing, just winter wheat and a drainage cut. Caleb asked if we should reposition. I told him to hold until I confirmed it visually. That was annotation 1, my choice. At 2308, the hail core shifted south and the road went black ahead of us. Not dark from cloud, dark like the headlamps had shortened. Caleb hit the brights. They reached maybe 30 feet. Beyond that, the beam just stopped, as if it were striking something clear and solid hanging in front of the truck. At 2311, I opened my door to check for dust, fog, anything physical. The air was warm, wet, smelled like cut grass and ozone. I could hear insects in the ditch. Ordinary sound, ordinary temperature. But the light still ended in a hard line. Then something rolled over the roof of the truck, not touching it, above it. A heavy suspension sound, tires crossing loose boards. The whole sequence passed left to right over our heads, complete with a faint trailer rattle at the end. Caleb ducked on instinct. I looked up through the windshield. There was another truck shape over us, not clear, more like a pressure in the rain, a rectangular absence with wheel wells, riding upside down maybe 15 feet above the cab. I could see 4 dull circles where tires should be. They were turning. It moved northeast. Same vector as the radar return. Same speed. Caleb put the F-350 in reverse so hard the gears barked. We slid back 20 yards in the mud. The thing overhead kept pace without effort. When I checked the screen, the compact return was centered exactly on our GPS marker. That was when the radio started playing our own voices back to us. We were on County Mutual Aid frequency, plus our internal VHF channel. The speaker cracked once, then replayed the last 10 seconds from inside the cab. Caleb breathing through his nose. Me saying, "Hold until I confirm it visually." The squeak of my door seal. It came back flat and exact, like a field recorder had been sitting on the console. Then it played an older line, one I had not said yet. "Keep driving, Caleb. Do not stop at the house." I wrote that sentence later from memory, and I am aware of how it sounds. But he heard it too. He turned and stared at me. I had not spoken. My mouth was closed. The speaker clicked again. New audio. A wet hammering sound. Metal flexing. Then Caleb somewhere close to the mic saying, "Danny, it's in the back seat." Our truck had no back seat. We had removed it for battery storage and Pelican cases. Caleb killed the radio. Power not full off. The voice continued through the speaker for another 4 seconds before cutting out. At 23:17, I made the decision to terminate intercept and return east on 160. As Caleb turned the truck, the shape above us turned first, like it already knew the road. We reached pavement and accelerated to 55. The storm line stayed in the mirrors, pulsing with distant sheet lightning. For 3 minutes, everything almost looked normal. Wipers, yellow center line, utility poles ticking by. Then the truck above us appeared in flashes. Not every lightning strike, only some. In one flash, it was directly over the hood, upside down, matching our speed. In another, it had drifted half a lane left, as if changing position to look in through my window. It was our truck. Same brush guard, same rust mark under the passenger door, same dent in the rear quarter from a fence post near Enid in March. The underside was wrong. Not mechanical, soft in places, sagging. The spare tire cavity looked like a mouth worked open with both hands. Caleb would not look up again. He drove hunched forward, jaw locked, saying mile markers under his breath. 42, 43, 44. At marker 45, something landed in the bed behind us with enough weight to bottom out the suspension. The rear end dropped. The truck swayed. In the mirror, I saw the tarp over the generator press upward from underneath, as if a person were unfolding there. We had tied that tarp down with ratchet straps. Caleb wanted to keep moving. I told him if the generator broke loose, it could punch through the tailgate or start a fire. That was true. It was also easier to say than something had climbed into the bed. We pulled onto a gravel turnout by an abandoned grain elevator at 2329. No lights anywhere, just the elevator, a chain link fence, and one sodium lamp half a mile off, near a maintenance shed. I took the mag light from the door pocket and went back first. Caleb covered me with the spotlight mounted by the A-pillar. The tarp was still strapped flat. No bulge, no movement. I touched it anyway. Cold. Colder than the rainwater on the metal. The shape under it was not the generator anymore. Too narrow, too long. The corners were wrong. There were 4 distinct rises along one side, evenly spaced, like knuckles pressing up from beneath canvas. I heard Caleb say my name. Not shout. Just say it once, thin and level. I looked toward the cab. Someone was sitting in the passenger seat, bent slightly because the roof was in the way. My door was still open. The spotlight washed across its face and kept going, as if the features were not fixed long enough for the beam to catch them. I ran for the cab. I know that will be the first thing people judge. Why did I run toward it? Because Caleb was in there. By the time I reached the door, the passenger seat was empty. The upholstery was soaked. Not with rain, with something thicker that clung in strings between the seat and the center console. Caleb was making a choking sound. His hands were at his throat. There was nothing around his neck. I hauled the door open and grabbed his wrists. The skin under my fingers was jerking hard, tendons jumping like hooked wires. His eyes were fixed on the roof. I followed them. The headliner above us was sagging inward. 4 round impressions moved across it from back to front, slow and heavy, as if tires were rolling over the fabric just above our heads. Dust sifted into Caleb's hair. The dome light flickered with each pass. Then the roof caved down 6 inches in the shape of a windshield frame. Caleb screamed once, short, angrier than afraid. The metal folded again. His seatbelt retractor burst from the pillar. The steering wheel snapped sideways. I fell backward out of the cab. The whole truck lifted on the passenger side and slammed down. When it settled, Caleb was no longer in the driver's seat. The shoulder belt was still buckled around empty air. This last portion is assembled from dashcam metadata, dispatch records, and what I remember after I started driving east alone. I left the turnout at 2341 in the damaged truck. Passenger side roof crushed, windshield cracked through the top corner, Caleb missing. I transmitted officer assistance traffic until the radio failed completely. The mobile radar was still running. I should have killed it, I know that. Instead, I looked. The compact return was no longer centered on the truck. It was ahead of me now, moving northeast at 41 knots. Same impossible vector. It stayed exactly 2.3 miles in front for the next 17 minutes, cutting across fields, creek beds, roads, anything, pacing me without using the roads. At 23:58, it stopped, not at random, at my address in Pratt. I did not enter that into any navigation that night. Caleb knew where I lived, but he never once put it in the truck system. There is no reason my home should have appeared as a fixed point on a storm radar display. But I watched the return sit over my block like a thumbprint while I was still 30 miles out. Dispatch later recovered one voicemail from my house landline, timestamped 00:03. It is mostly static. At the end, my daughter's voice says, "Dad, there's a truck on the ceiling." Subscribe if you want the rest of the evidence I kept.